And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
When you first play Flash Duel, you might think that it sounds very similar to a game designed by Rainer Knizia on Garde, and it is. I mean, it's a very much obvious taken from that, but there's quite a few changes made to it, especially adding the special powers, something Mr. Knizia I don't think will ever do in one of his games, and I think should be in almost every game. But anyway, Flash Duel is from the same universe as Puzzle Strike and Yomi. It takes characters and they fight one another on a battlefield. It's a bit of an abstract game with special abilities. Let's take a look at it and see what you think. Flash Duel comes in several modes, but I'm going to talk about the simplest version, which basically is very similar to Engarde. And it even comes in a tuck box that you can carry around, because all you have is this small deck of cards, and you don't have to carry the board around. You have cards that you can put together to form this board. But if you don't want to do that, you can simply use the board here. And each player takes a pawn and puts them on one end of the board, which is 18 spaces. You're going to take this deck of 25 cards, which is made up of 5 cards each of values 1 through 5, shuffle them, and each player gets 5. On your turn, you can play a card in front of you. This card will allow you to do different things. For example, you can move. So I can move 2 spaces forward, and you can also move 2 spaces backward. You can never go past the end of the board, and you can never go past your opponent wherever he might be. So you want to move. Another thing you can do is if you are adjacent to an opponent, you can play a card as a push to push him back that many spaces. And then another thing you can do, then this is the main focus of the game, is if you are a certain distance away, let's say yellow is 4 spaces away here from blue, they can play an attack of a 4, which means that blue has to play an attack of 4 or he takes a hit. If you take a hit, you've lost the round, and you play best 3 out of 5 to see who wins the most rounds. I could play 2 4s if I had them, then he would have to play 2 4s to block me. And then finally, you can make a dashing strike, which means if I was here, I could play a 1 card to move forward 1, and then I could play a 3 card on top of that to then attack the person. So I could play a 1 and then a 3 to attack. Dashing attack seems very powerful, but when you play a dashing attack, the other person can play any card from their hand as a retreat. However, when they do that, their next turn they simply refill their hand to 5 cards. If the game ends with the deck running out, then nobody wins unless they can show their hand and instantly make an attack to win, then they win. Otherwise, the person who is farther towards their opponent's line is the winner. So if you want to sit back and say, come get me, that's fine, but you're also taking a good chance that you will lose. Your opponent simply has to move forward a little bit farther than you. Now that's the basic game, and it's decent, but what we can add to that is we can add special abilities. In this game, there are multiple characters, a ton of them actually, all the characters, and you may notice that these characters are from Puzzle Strike and from Yomi. In fact, it has all those characters, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these new characters come into play in Yomi. I mean, I love to play with the Clockwork Guardian. That looks really cool, or this Death Strike Dragon. I'm very curious to play with these guys in Yomi. But anyway, you have these 16 characters, and each character comes with 3 cards. So you put these 3 cards in front of you, and during the game, you can use these cards as long as this. For example, if an opponent retreats from your dashing strike, then that opponent has to reveal his hand. Or at the start of my turn, or if I'm attacked, I can discard a pair, and if I do, retrieve a card from the discard pile to my hand. Or here, if an opponent uses an ability, but they're on a dark space on the board, then I can counter that special ability. And so everyone has different special abilities. My favorite are Lums, the panda. He's my favorite character from Puzzle Strike and from Yomi, so I guess it would make sense. He's my favorite here, mostly because he has that gambling thing. If you recall 5 cards straight, you win. 1, 2, 3, or 5. Or you can just draw a card and do whatever it says. And some of the characters have very powerful ones. Like, for example, here. The Rook here has your 1 attack is unblockable. So if you let him get close to you, he might just hit you. And so there's some really neat special abilities. And the game even has this clockwork thing where you can shuffle this deck up, and then you lace them out, and then you and your opponent draft them. And so you might have one of her special abilities, and one of his special abilities, and one of his special abilities. And that's a really neat thing because it gives you tons of different combinations. Neatest thing about the game, I think. Now you can play, the game's one-on-one, but you can play a match with several people and play winners against winners and take the chips to show. Or up to 4 people can gang up against a dragon. Now, the difficulty against going a dragon will add more cards into the deck to make it bigger and thicker and go through, but he also has a bigger hand of cards, and it takes several hits to kill him, and he gets some of these cards. He has all different special abilities, and they're powerful. Look at this one. Attack this turn as if you played a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 at the same time. Nasty. Very powerful. But if that wasn't bad enough, you can play another variant with a traitor. Each person gets one of these cards. You're mostly loyal, but one of you is a traitor and working with the dragon. So that almost makes it too difficult for the heroes, but it is still possible to win. And you can also play the game solo, and you can even play the game solo against the dragon. Many different variants, but they all basically come back to that basic game version that I showed you at the beginning, and they all use that form, and then there's just a pile of variants, which makes the game Flash Duel. Well, this one's easy enough. I like it. I like it a lot. It's very entertaining. Sirlin Games is 3 for 3 with me. I don't like this as much as I like Yomi because of the depth of Yomi. I think the rock, paper, scissors combat, but this is pretty cool. And I really like the clockwork thing where I could take different special abilities and put them together and play against my opponent. It has some really neat aspects to that. And the whole idea of lunging forward and coming back and lunging forward. And the game has, because whoever's farther ahead wins a tie, except in the Aragang, he has a special ability that he wins ties no matter what. So you got to go get him. But that forces people to move towards each other, and that's a neat thing. And knowing what your opponent's special abilities are, countering them. Some of them are really powerful. Some of them you have to be careful. Don't let them get too close. Others, get close to them and fight them off. It's just it's neat, and it's neat how they all fit together. Fighting the dragon is a neat experience. The traitor aspect is interesting. I don't know that it's necessary for this game. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. Anytime there's a traitor in anything, I'm going to have a good time. But in this instance, I'm just not... I don't know that it's as fun as basically just people going up against a dragon. Let's fight each other. It is hard enough to take down that dragon. He's very powerful, and with a couple lucky blows can take out the whole team going up against him. But still, a lot of fun, very interesting, infinite replayability with all the special abilities. And of course, if you know me, that's something that I'm a sucker for, so I like this one a lot.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Yeah?